And welcome to the SportsWrap Extra Online. I'm Joe Schmit from KSTP, along with Phil Mackey from 1500ESPN.com and the radio station. Let's talk about Gardy. After finishing second 5 times, Gardy finally gets the Manager of the Year. Was this kind of a sympathy vote maybe for him?
Well, I mean, you could argue that the 5 times he's finished runner-up, he certainly deserves it, at least at some point. The run in 06 in the second half of the season, the 2 times they went to game 163. But ultimately, when you lose Justin Morneau halfway through the season, and you lose Joe Nathan to start the year, the patchwork you have to do, the other injuries to Orlando Hudson throughout the year, J.J. Hardy, and just the patchwork you have to do. Ron Washington was certainly deserving, but I think Gardenhire at some point over this 9-year stretch has earned it somewhere, and I think this year was definitely. They won 94 games with all the patchworking he had to do.
45-23 down the stretch. And on top of that, we should mention that this voting took place before the playoffs, before Ron Washington had the nice little run in the playoffs, and the Twins did not have the run. We're going to be talking to Gardy. We'll have him on our 6 o'clock news tonight. He's down in Florida right now. It'll be very interesting to see how he responds, because he's a team guy. He's said in the past this really doesn't mean that big a deal to him, but I think deep down it did hurt him a little bit. Here's a guy that was a utility player, a guy that had to scrap for everything he got in the major leagues as a player, now finally getting his dues as a manager.
Yeah, and I think there's some comparisons to and some contrasting between him and Brad Childress. You look at guys who, if you just take the 2 separate scenarios, Brad Childress, very talented team, a team that was expected to do well this season, but look what happened in the locker room. A lot of off-the-field, just drama situations. In 9 years, how many enemies has Ron Gardenhire made, either in the media or as a baseball manager around baseball? And how many times has that clubhouse fallen apart on him? No, it's never happened. There's been some isolated incidents, but from just an ego management standpoint and managing that clubhouse, I don't think there's anybody better than Ron Gardenhire.
You're right. And it's interesting because this year, I think we would all agree, in the media, people who have known him for a long time, he got a little testier this year and maybe a little bit more defensive this year in the past. And I don't know if that was because the attention of the new field and more media, and also now living in this whole world where the 1500 ESPNs and KSTP.coms of the world, we're all over it too.
And really, Gardy's the type of guy where you can criticize. Let's say you're in a pregame Q&A session with reporters. You can criticize a player in a question, and he'll sort of snap back at you and defend that player, but then behind closed doors, he'll go and tell that player, you need to step up. I mean, he goes to defend his guys, and that's why players love playing for him. And you're right, I think there was just a higher level of anxiety this season because it was the first year, really, where it wasn't the little engine that could. It was a team that was expected to win the division, expected to make a playoff run. The vote came, like you said, before the playoffs. So there's a reason why he was a little bit more antsy, I think, this year. But he'll be the last one to tell you that it's all his award. He'll deflect all of this onto the players.
Absolutely. But we're happy for Gardy. He's no longer the Susan Lucci of baseball because he finally wins the American League Manager of the Year award. This is PMAC Phil Mackey of 1500 ESPN. I'm Joe Schmit of Channel 5 Eyewitness News. This has been a SportsWrap Online.